During the screening question, the HR asked me on what your dream job or dream company would be. And the irony is, I told the HR that Google would be my dream company, and I wouldn't even give a thought, and I would make that decision in a snap second if I were to ever get hired by Google.
Ragini Sundarraman, welcome to the first episode of the podcast. First of all, I am really excited to have you here. And how you feel?
Equal parts excited and nervous.
Same here. Okay, so before we deep dive into this episode, before we talk about the main content, I would like you to tell the audience about yourself, just to set the context.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Ragini, 28 years of age, born and brought up all through my life in Mumbai. I've stayed there practically my entire life. Living in Delhi for the past year and a half, almost, ever since the pandemic hit, in fact. And I've been working with Google as a digital marketing strategist for almost over 2 years now.
Right. So, nice brief introduction over there to set the context. So, coming straight to the point, you work at Google right now. So, what was your journey to getting into Google, or I should say, getting into your dream role in your dream company? Just shed some light on the journey.
Sure. I think that's a really interesting topic to delve into, and the answer may not really be as direct as it always seems, because there were multiple paths along the way that actually led me to this final destination. So if I were to just maybe rewind back and set the context for that before we deep dive into that, I am a computer engineering graduate from Mumbai University. I finished my graduation in about 2015 and decided to pursue an MBA soon after. MBA from NMIMS in marketing 2015 to 17. And I think when we enter MBA, all of us really have a very rosy picture painted in our head that, we'll all be hired in a very corporate setup, head the strategy or the marketing or the finance department of some company, and we think that we'll be in a leadership position from the get-go, which is obviously not the case. So I had my first, I would say, reality check as soon as I completed my MBA. When I didn't land the dream job that I wanted, I went on to do a B2B brand marketing role in a chemicals manufacturing company, where I stayed over for almost a year and a half. So although the industry was not to my liking, the industry was not what I was used to working in, the role actually did help me learn a lot of ground realities on what is it that you actually need to build yourself, to upskill yourself. And personally, for me, tech, IT, software really held a soft spot ever since I was in engineering. And it was my dream to get into a company like Google or Facebook, or basically any internet giant that exists right now would potentially be my dream company. And this was all along from engineering. So you could say a well-harbored dream from maybe 5 to 7 years. So was I heartbroken when I didn't get into Google when they came to college for campus placements in 2017? Yes, definitely. I think I even cried over it. In fact, the interesting part is at the company where I did go to work after my MBA, during the screening question, the HR asked me on what your dream job or dream company would be. And the irony is, I told the HR that Google would be my dream company, and I wouldn't even give a thought, and I would make that decision in a snap second if I were to ever get hired by Google. Of course, then I had never made a concrete plan or say a strategy, if you have to call it that, on how I want to get into Google or crack the dream job. But I think that process kind of started maybe 6-8 months into my new job, when I finally started understanding what my work entails, what I'd like to do, say 3, 5, 7 years into the future. Do I want to keep working where I'm working right now, or do I want to really climb the ladder and reach where my dreams and where my aspirations are? And as soon as I sort of started understanding that this is not the place for me, and I need to work harder and maybe do some sort of self-reflection to understand how can I get where I need to go. I think that's where all the process of actually getting into my dream role or my dream job started.
Okay, great journey over there. I think there's a lot to learn for everyone who's listening to this or watching this right now. So you talked about, you said that you had that dream of getting into an internet giant, right?
Yeah.
Since engineering, right? So that dream you had was, did it evolve with time, or did you have it since the very beginning? That was your first dream you had, or did it evolve as you went through MBA, went through college and all that?
So I think if you have to call it evolution, it did definitely evolve in terms of the kind of role or the kind of work I want to be doing at this dream role. Because in engineering, frankly, while I was doing my graduation, and I don't know if I'm speaking for a majority of students who might go through the same thing,
right?
But I really went in blind when I was going to do my engineering. Like I knew I wanted to do engineering, but while I took my admission right after my 12th, which was when I was 18, I don't think you really give a thought on what you're actually going to do career-wise 10 years from now. I don't think I ever gave it that deep a thought on, if I'm going to do engineering, this is what my dream role is going to be, and this is what my dream company is going to be.
Right.
At that time, just finishing engineering and getting a degree in my hand was maybe the only goal that I had. So the evolution definitely in terms of continually understanding where the industry is going and also understanding where my position in that industry could be. So that's definitely been an evolution. And even as we speak right now, I'm having that evolution even while I'm working at my current role.
I think I connect to your story somewhere, because even I did my engineering in computer science. I had not really planned for engineering as such, because that was the only option during that time, right? And even today, when I'm 30, my aspirations, my dream role, my dream job is still evolving, right?
Yeah.
So now coming to the question of dream role versus dream company, right?
Yeah.
You work at Google, you're doing a role in advertising, right? So now the question which a lot of listeners might have is, should I go for the dream role or should I go for my dream company?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a really tough question, in the sense when it actually comes to that juncture, it can be a difficult decision to take. But then again, I feel it depends on two things. One, how important the dream company is to you. And two, how far away are you from that dream role currently? So if I have to just give my perspective, assume a case that, say, okay, Google is my dream company. And say I were offered a role in a function that was not even remotely related to what I've studied for. Maybe I would reconsider that decision and let the offer from the dream company go. Because I feel this then again is very related. It's sort of like a correlation between what students do when they have certain top college brand names in mind. Where you might just go after the college name and not really worry about which subjects you're doing, but that ends up harming you in the long run more than you realize. And I think that's what, for me, the correlation between the role and the company is. So if, say, I were to get a role in my dream company that's completely in a different function, I would maybe, with a heavy heart, have to say no. Because it would then mean that I have to change my career trajectory completely, just to fulfill that one notion of being in the company that I want to. But if I were to focus on my dream role instead and do my level best to get into that function in maybe some other company that's not my dream company, maybe smaller, even a startup, a mid-sized, whatever firm you get into. But if you actually get into that dream role and try build yourself, upskill yourself through the job that you're doing, I feel you will arrive at your dream company with your dream role sometime or the other.
Right. So focusing more on the role.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another perspective I have over here. So say Google is my dream company, but the role that is being offered or the roles that are being offered are nowhere close to what I really want to do, right? In terms of working, right? So I think for somebody who is confused about roles, for example, if he or she is an engineer, right? And he or she is confused about coding or analytics, advertising, maybe marketing, right? And he's getting some role which is only 10% connected to what he or she is doing. So, my perspective, I would say, if you get into a dream company, right, not getting your dream role, get into a dream company, right, and then work your way towards getting a dream role also. That is another perspective I have that may also be a solution for somebody who's looking for a dream role in a dream company. Right?
Yeah, but maybe just to add there, there's also a vision of where a person is at right now in life or in a career that needs to be added there. Because I think when you're a graduate or you're fresh out of college, you're more accustomed to taking those risks. You're more in the mindset, in the sort of environment where you can afford to take those risks. But I think depending on what your responsibilities later on in life are, what your aspirations for yourself later on in life are, taking those risks for, say, a non-dream role in a dream company could turn out to be more expensive for you. So then it becomes a consideration of, okay, how much are you willing to risk to maybe just try out if you can navigate your dream role from, say, a totally unrelated function.
Now, to add to that, I think if you become laid back in your not so dreamy role, right, you may just lose track of what you really want to do in life. Right? That's what you're actually essentially saying.
Yeah.
That's what happens with a lot of people. So they get into a role, right? They have no correlation with that, right? They never dreamt of it. But now it's since they've been working for like 4 or 5 years in that particular role, their life is defined by that role now. If they switch jobs, switch companies, they would get preference for that particular role and not the role which they essentially want to do. So I think from the very beginning, your vision should be kind of tunnel vision, I should say, focusing on that role rather than the company, and then eventually building your way up, right?
Yeah, instead of tunnel vision, I would say just revisit your dreams, your aspirations, maybe every 2 years. Because what's a dream role for me right now may not necessarily hold true 2 years from now. So it's important to revisit what you think is your career aspiration or your professional aspiration, and then chalk out a way forward. So I don't believe in having 5-year plans or 10-year plans or 15-year plans, because who knows where the world is going, where you're going to be in 5 years. Who knew this pandemic would hit us and change industries, change the economies, change the world as we know it. So I really feel planning for 1 to 2 to 3 year spots at the most would be the best thing to do for yourself, because it gives you the opportunity to rethink and reapply what you've been doing in these 2 short years to see how that shapes up into a future vision.
I think this is a very interesting conversation we're having around roles and jobs and companies, right? I think, as you said, aspirations evolve with time as well. Right? Now, you've talked about your journey, you've talked about dream job versus dream role, right? Now, the thing is, you kind of prepared to get into Google, right? You put in some sort of preparation over there, right? That preparation can be sort of be generalized for other companies, other roles as well. Can you generalize that preparation for us over here? What was your approach?
Sure. So I didn't, to actually just maybe clarify, I didn't necessarily prepare only for Google. So I would say it was 6 to 8 months long journey, if I have to put it on a timeline, where I wasn't necessarily targeting Google. But what I done was, and it's an interesting approach, I can even share it with you, and maybe you can share the link with your followers or subscribers as well for them to go through with it. So I used to maintain this Excel sheet while I was working at my previous company. There was this Excel sheet where I listed out about 50 companies across industries of my interest that I would like to work next on. So as I told you, internet, IT, anything to do with tech, startups, these were the kind of targets I had for myself in terms of the companies I want to get into. So I just made a list of all these companies. So companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Zomato, Swiggy, Foodpanda, and all those kind of businesses. And against each of these 50 companies, I would do some research, go onto their website, go onto their careers page, go onto their LinkedIn page, and see what kind of openings they have there. So I used to sort of copy and paste the opening link against each of these companies and keep a track of which roles I've applied to. Now, additionally, for each company, I used to go on to LinkedIn and find out research about getting into contact with at least 2 people from the company. So one person who's already working in the function that I want to get into. So say, for example, I had applied to an events role at Zomato. So I went on LinkedIn and researched for some person who's already working in the events function within Zomato, say since the last 1.5 years. So somebody who's already there and might know a bit about the role or the job. And 2, the hiring managers. So I think LinkedIn is a very, very easy tool to use for such scenarios where you can just pretty much put in a company name, put in a job role or a function, and it gives you a list of people who are working within that function. So I made complete use of that function, and I used to send connection requests to all these people. Now, of course, that's a matter of luck or chance on whether or not these people accept a connection request. But I think these days, LinkedIn being a professional network, if you write a good enough introduction about yourself and genuinely let them know why you're sending them a connection request, which is 1, to understand more about a role you're potentially applying for, and 2, to see if you can get some help from them in preparing for that interview. So that's what I basically did, where I had a templatized message which had a 2-line introduction about myself and, hey, I've applied for XYZ role at your company and I would love to know more about it. So maybe you could accept my connection request and we can have a further chat or further talk about it. So I did this for all the 50 companies I listed. So at least 2 jobs in each of those companies, 2 contacts within each of those companies. So almost 150 connection requests sent, along with these like message requests on why I'm sending the connection request. So although to clarify, that's not finally what led me to cracking my job at Google, because although other companies responded and I did end up having good conversations with them and understanding what they really look for in an interview process, I think 6 to 8 months, basically, that's all I thought about outside of my daily work. So I used to maybe work for 8-9 hours a day on my job. And as soon as I got back home, 3 hours, I would drill my head down and try to look for avenues where maybe I can upskill myself and jump next to. So I think that was my single point focus for 6 months, which eventually led me to getting an interview call. And I think with some luck and preparation, also cracking it finally to land the offer.
So the approach is quite interesting. It's rigorous, right? It's a long-term process, right?
Yeah.
So when you go through that hard work, luck will eventually be, a part of hard work, right? If you work hard, luck is there. Some things which kind of help you, maybe your LinkedIn profile, right? When you reached out to that person, your LinkedIn profile was essentially ready, right?
Correct.
It was written in a way, it was prepared in a way to suit that particular role, right?
That's true.
You had those keywords over there in your description. You had your keywords over there in your job roles, right?
Yeah.
Previous job roles. So I think the LinkedIn profile that you create at the first place also plays a very big role.
Definitely. I think I completely agree on that. I did do a big revamp of my LinkedIn profile, if we can call it that, before I actually started reaching out to contacts on LinkedIn from these companies. And it's nothing too fancy or something that you have to seek professional help for. I think there are 3 key pointers you should definitely keep in mind if you are also thinking of, say, applying to a new role and you want to ensure that your LinkedIn profile looks good. I think the first thing is make use of the whole description and overview segment that LinkedIn has, where you can write about 1,000 words about what your current role is, what your brief history is, and what you're good at. So I would say make complete use of that segment and break that segment down into broad sections of A, what's your past experience been like? B, with that experience, what are the key skills you possess? So are there 3, 4, 5 key skills or key areas that you think you're an expert at? And 3, how do those key skills contribute to, say, an advantage at any company or any role in the particular field that you're aiming to work at? So say for example, in my LinkedIn profile, I used to, in my brief introduction, talk about my graduation, my postgraduate degree, and my current role as a branding executive at a B2B company. And by virtue of being a branding executive, there were a ton of skills I picked up, which was LinkedIn marketing, digital marketing, brand activations, communication. So these were the skills I used to elaborate upon in maybe 3 to 4 sentences. And then once these were elaborated upon, my dream was to get into a core marketing function because the scope for me in B2B branding was very limited. So if I really wanted to grow, I wanted to get into marketing. So then how do these 3, 4 areas that I've learned in my current role, how do they contribute in a marketing role? So say me learning digital marketing is definitely an asset when it comes to applying for marketing jobs. So let that be me. Let that come out in your introduction. And I think the next important thing after all this is ensuring that you're impact oriented. So I think that's what most people look for when they're reading through anybody's CV. I don't think anybody wants to go through 200 lines of text and not understand what impact you've driven. So I think that what needs to come out really clearly in anything that you write.
What? Okay.
So is there a quantifiable impact or a quantifiable difference that you've been able to make in your current role? If yes, don't feel shy. That's not your place to be modest. Go ahead and write all about it.
Yeah. I feel that's very important for people who are graduating, right?
Yeah.
Or even doing the post-graduation right now,
Yeah.
right? Or even dreaming of getting into some other role from their current job role. Right? So that was a really interesting approach that you gave for people who are planning to switch jobs or graduating or even doing the post-graduation, right? MBA, etc. Now, you put in effort in terms of preparing to get into your new role, right? New role, new company, right? Your dream role, your dream company. But now comes the question of mentality, right? Belief, mentality. Did you always believe that you would get into Google or your dream role somewhere down the line? Because preparation is one thing, like it's 50% of the job. The rest 50%, I feel, is belief, mentality. Do you have something to say about that?
Definitely. I'm a huge fan and follower of a book called The Secret. If you've not heard about it, you definitely should go and check it out. It's by an author called Rhonda Byrne, and it talks about how the power of positivity, the power of manifestation can actually help you in achieving what you want to achieve out of life. So did I always believe in positivity and power of belief? I would say it was very intermittent. So I think it comes to me in life when I'm facing difficulties and I'm facing obstacles in where I want to go, and that kind of sets you back, makes you question your own self, makes you question your own worth, which is what happened to me right after my MBA. I think when I couldn't crack the multiple jobs, multiple interviews that I wanted to, or roles that I was interested in, that just ended up hitting my confidence really bad, where I felt that, oh, maybe I'm the one that's not good enough. That's why I'm not clearing interviews. And I'm just fortunate enough to have a job right now. So I shouldn't really dream big and think of anything. So that was where my confidence or my self-worth was at that point in time. And I was wallowing in that self-pity and doubt for maybe about a year after that. But slowly, steadily, I think I again read that book during that period, which was I think the third or the fourth time I read that book. And that again sort of induced a sense of positivity in me that if I have to change my path, if I have to change my journey, it's in my hand. Nobody else can do it for me. Only I can do it for myself. And unless I go ahead and take that action, nothing can be done about it. So along with all the steps that I told you I took, which is creating the Excel sheet, connecting with people and studying and so on and so forth, the power of positivity is definitely also something that I ensured that I was leveraging to my best bet. So I think it starts with two things. One, always resonate positivity into the universe. So what that means is this just basically follows laws of physics that we already know about. Every action will have an equal reaction. So what you give is what you get back,
Right.
basically. So if you give negative thoughts, if you let out negative thoughts into your environment, into the universe, that's what you get back. If you let out positive thoughts, if you let out positivity, optimism into your environment, into the universe, that's what ultimately circles and comes
Right.
back to you. So I used to have very firm and time-bound positive thoughts emanating from myself. So say, for example, if I think I got started in this job hunt journey somewhere around October 2018. So from then on, I made up my mind that before October 2019, I will get into a dream role at a company that I like in a city of my choice, and I will be happy about it. So this was the kind of very firm, time-bound and measurable goal that I set for myself. And I used to basically just, whenever I felt dejected, just think about it and okay, this is the vision I want to achieve for myself and I will do it no matter what. And I think that positivity just kind of helps build that confidence in you. I'm not saying it's all magic. You don't have to do any effort and just thinking positive things will sort of do the trick for you. No, that's not how it works. But what positivity does for you is at the subconscious level, it will make you want to take those actions that actually make that dream come true.
Right. So you talked about The Secret, the book, right? So if people are not able, people listening to this podcast, this episode, are not able to read the book, there's a Twitter handle by the same name, The Secret, right? And they put out lines and phrases from the book on the handle. So I think it's very important, not important, but it's essentially a choice. And it's an amazing handle which I follow. And every day I get a new phrase about positivity, about life, faith, and all that. Right?
In fact, to add to that, there's I think also a movie based on the book. So it's basically the same book translated into a movie for people who don't want to read. It's a 60 or a 75-minute movie.
Right.
And I think it's right now on Amazon Prime. But you should be able to find snippets. Like you said, they do post quotes and phrases on Twitter. Same way they do upload snippets onto YouTube. So even that makes for a very interesting watch if you like the visual medium more than you would say the reading.
So what I do is I link the handles over there in the description for everyone to access, right? Now you've talked about your preparation. You've talked about your mentality that you adopted. And the question is, what are the key things one should do, right, to get into the dream job? Right? It may be a dream role or it may be a dream company. I would generalize it and say a dream job.
Sure.
Key things, qualitative.
Yeah. Key things. I think first key thing would be self-assessment. So understand where you're at right now and where you would need to be if you want to get your dream job. So there might be scenarios where there might be some gap that's actually stopping you from getting into the dream job. So self-assessment will help you identify what those gaps are for you to actually get into the dream job. And I would say easiest ways of self-assessing is maybe just pulling out job descriptions and role descriptions from a company's website and understanding, okay, how many of these will I be able to realistically fulfill? I think that's why you have to be true to yourself and not fake it, but actually honestly evaluate if this is the job description. And if I start working in this role tomorrow, what are the things I'm going to be able to fulfill with utmost confidence, and where are the things that I might stumble? And those areas where you might stumble then become improvement areas for yourself. Now, once you've done this exercise, the second would definitely be upskilling and working on those gaps that you've identified in step one. So this could be through free online courses that you can find anywhere on the internet. If you have the capacity and the monetary standing for it, then maybe do a free online course. There are tons of it available now, and I also personally did a digital marketing paid course online before I actually interviewed for this role because I didn't have any formal education in digital marketing and I wanted to do that. So if you have the means for it, definitely consider that as well as an opportunity, which is formally educating yourself in those gap areas. And number three, I think never underestimate the value of preparation. So although you might know everything about the core subject that you need to, I think going to an interview also entails, say, cracking the dream job interview also entails a lot of how you present yourself and how you are on the day of the interview. Now, of course, it can boil down to a lot of factors on what comes to your mind at that point when that question is asked in that second. I think all those factors do apply, but then it also matters on how have you prepared yourself in the days to come. Do you keep yourself informed by reading up about your industry, by understanding what's going on in the peer group, in the top companies that are in there? How is that company or that industry expected to evolve over the next 5 years? You can basically, I think the internet is I would say a rabbit hole right now where you can just go as deep as you want. You can basically get lost in the amount of articles that you can find online these days. So I wouldn't say finding or accessing information is a challenge, but filtering out and reading the information that is more useful to you is the real challenge. So I think doing that on an ongoing basis will really definitely help in cracking the dream interview.
I think even I can pick things from your, like whatever you've told right now. So that's about the things one should do, right?
Yeah.
To get into a dream role or dream. I mean, it's kind of generalized for everybody. Right? So anybody and everybody out there can adopt these practices and pursue her or his dream role.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, this is a digital era. Right? Things have gone online. Everything is happening online, right? Even from interviews to working style, working from home, right? So what are the 3 key skills, right, one should possess in the digital era, irrespective of the job he or she is doing, irrespective of the business he or she is doing? 3 key skills already.
I think digital era, irrespective of the job or function, if I were to rank them in order of importance, I think the first one would definitely be a little tech savvy or social media savvy. Why I say this is social media right now is not a place where we just interact with our friends or family or post pictures anymore. It's become a place where real business takes place.
Yeah.
That's become a place, whether we like it or not, that's become a place where businesses interact with us. That's become a place where we go and search, look out for businesses. So be it any restaurant you're going to, resort that you're going to stay in, or a brand that you want to buy clothes from. If it's a new brand, if it's some restaurant you've never been to before, you're likely to check out the menu on Zomato. You're likely to check out what the food looks like on Instagram. You're likely to check out what they're posting on Facebook. So I think if you're working in a function that takes care of all this, it becomes very important to understand how important social media is to your business and how you can effectively leverage that to ensure that you're reaching out to the right people. I think that becomes number one. Number two, I would say don't underestimate traditional education in the field of your choice. So, for example, if I'm a marketing person, just because digital marketing is the in thing right now does not mean you can excel at digital marketing without actually knowing what marketing is. Because digital marketing, all said and done, is performing marketing with the use of upgraded, newer tools and resources. So if I don't know marketing, if I don't know the basics of what a marketing strategy is, what are the various factors you consider when you launch a product, when you launch a business, how do you differentiate between your competitors, how do you find out your USP? I think all these apply both in traditional marketing and in digital marketing. The only thing that differs is how do you sort of filter out and communicate that to your audience.
Right.
That's where the digital aspect comes in. So having a very strong foundation in your core job is very important, irrespective of whether you want to get into digital or not. Having that core and that foundation really just laid out and structured is very important. And third, I think, is just evolve. I think the world we live in right now, you cannot afford to imagine that after your post-graduation, your education is complete and you don't have to study.
Yeah.
I think while your formal education may be complete, there's still a ton that you have to do in terms of constantly reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
So keep yourself updated on what are the latest tools that you can use, what are the latest trends that you should know about, how is consumer behavior changing. So although I'm talking this from a very personally biased perspective on how I would think as a marketer, but these are just examples of what you'd have to keep yourself informed on if you have to sort of stay relevant in these times.
I think the last point was more about keep learning, right?
Yeah.
Keep learning new stuff and add to your points. I think in this era, it's very easy to communicate with a lot of people out there. Right? You have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatnot coming up. Right? So I think communication or the communication skills that you need to generate or develop is a key thing, key skill right now. Right? This is a content era, right?
Yeah.
So you need to create as much content as you can, right? In whatever field you are interested in. Right? It may not be marketing, it may not be data analytics, it may be anything.
Yeah.
So creating content is important. Communicating what you know is important in this era, what I feel.
Yeah.
And that can actually be your ticket to a great job or ticket to success in your business.
I think everything that we discussed right up to this point, which is revamping a LinkedIn profile or reaching out to potential recruiters on LinkedIn, all boils down to how you're presenting yourself.
Yeah.
And how do you present yourself is through the power of content on these mediums. So,
and it's not mandatory to have a video, record a video. You can do an audio version of this, right?
It can even be a
blog.
Leave alone a blog. If it's still talking about applying to jobs, something even as simple as a resume can be treated as your personal content strategy. And if you were to look at it in that lens, I think it would completely change the way you approach building out your resume or your CV.
And I think now we come to the last question of the episode. So what has your struggle in your initial days of your career taught you about life in general?
I think that's last question, but definitely a tough one to answer. I will try my best. I think you have to summarize what all the struggle has taught me into one line, which I love to live by. It's tough times don't last, tough people do. And I think I keep that in mind always. So life will never be very plain, easy flowing. There are always going to be ups and downs in your life. And I think it's important that you be prepared for it and embrace what comes your way. Because if you're going to run away from, say, obstacles and only be ready to embrace successes, it becomes very difficult to handle failure. And I think that's what I realized when I had my first bout with failure in life, which is I didn't know how to handle it. And I think it's equally important to handle failure, just as important as it is to handle success. One thing that we're not taught in schools or even at home in general is how to handle failure. I think that really gets overlooked upon, but it's an important aspect that you really need to keep in mind. And handling failure can teach you a lot more about life than experiencing success would. And I think how you handle that failure will definitely define how you orchestrate that success for yourself later on in life. And whenever you face any obstacles, challenges, or you're feeling down, or you're feeling like you're not going in the trajectory you want to, just remember yourself about that. Just remind yourself about that one line. That this is temporary. And if I just work through it, energize myself enough, motivate myself enough, I will eventually get through this. So there's a term called toxic positivity that's really getting popular in these times, which is like trying to ignore all the negativity that's happening around you by just reinforcing positive thoughts in your head. That does not always work. That's what toxic positivity is called, which is urging you to always be positive even if you're faced with a life-threatening situation. That's not how it works. And that's not what I'm asking you to do. There are times you will feel low. There are times you will be non-productive. there are times when you will not perform to your best or you will not achieve your aspirations. And it's completely okay to go through those periods, those moments in life. The important thing is that you embrace it, you learn from it when you're comfortable enough, when you're out of that situation, and apply it later on in life.
Ragini Sundarraman has really set the context out there for a lot of people out there who are trying to switch jobs or get into their dream roles, right? Struggling, but the struggle will eventually lead you to a good place, right? So keep hustling, keep working hard. And on that note, I'd like to thank you, Ragini Sundarraman, for coming on the show and providing us with content which is very enlightening, right, for most of the listeners, especially for me, who is the active listener over here. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for watching this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da.